See, the church in 2026 has made men weaker. The majority of churches, not all, right, but just like the idea of church in 2026 has made men weaker. Men used to be warriors. Christian men used to be some of the most powerful men in the world. We're talking about absolute leaders, men who were courageous. These were kings. These were, the guys who created and founded the land. These were the men who went out in the world and they found societies and they created societies and they built, just empires. But men don't do that anymore. And you have to ask yourself why. And the reality is everything from the watered down messages, everything from the music, all the way to the way that a man should lead his wife has been totally adulterated. It's been it's been tainted. It's been watered down. It's been affected deeply. And so in this video, I want to explain exactly what has caused this, but more importantly, I want to explain what we need to do about it. If you're not already, I want you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it because this is a channel that's trying to bring men to the highest levels of proficiency in their life as fathers, as leaders, as husbands, right? And so, a follow goes a long way for both you and for myself. In addition to that, if you ever looked for a community before and you don't know where to start, check out the description of this video and you'll be able to work with us at Before the Apple. Listen, this video is not to insult anybody. There's a lot of amazing leaders of churches across the country, but the big problem that you find is that, like, just listen to like the majority of Elevation Worship's music, for example, right? I'm not going to play their music here in the video because of copyright, infringement, but any Christian has heard their music. And just, I mean, every song is this sweet, quiet, it starts off with a little piano. It's always just this sensitive softness. And don't get me wrong, the music is good. I like it. I can jam to it. But at some point, you start to realize that it's a female led emotional tune. Every single one of them. Instead of music that really kind of inspires you to take action. Instead, it makes you just want to cry. And that's not what it's always about. Like, I don't think that the Holy Spirit always is just about making us feel overly emotional and want to get on our knees and cry. Sometimes the Holy Spirit should drive a man to take action on the things that he's been holding back in his life, the things that he's been, not taking control of. It should inspire him to move into a mindset, into a framework where he's ready to become a better man, truly, at the deepest levels. But we have a hard time finding any type of music that does that in the Christian church. A lot of the messages that we hear from pastors is all about passivity, right? The Bible's really clear. It shows you in certain verses, like for example, in the book of First Corinthians, it tells us to be strong and courageous, to be firm in the faith, to act like men. But let's be real. In modern day society, we don't even know what a man is. Like, normal people can't even define what a man is. And that's a problem. And so if as a society and as a church, we cannot define what a man is, well, then how do we know how to act like men? See, Christ is the head of the man, and the man is the head of the wife, and the wife is the head of the children. You will find the majority of Christian men will not blatantly straight out say, I am the head of my wife, and I am the head of my household. What I say is the final say. And when we have a discussion, if we don't know what to do, we'll do what I think is best. You won't find a lot of men doing that anymore. Some still hold true to that. But see, the reality is that any man who's ever spent time in the military or in the police or any type of a, small unit environment, you learn quickly that you must have leadership. Leadership and a hierarchy is critical for success. Without that, all of a sudden you have women who are trying to take lead and then the man is trying to take lead and then you have a clash. Now, am I saying that a woman can't, you know, take lead of her home if she's a single mom or whatever? Of course not. Am I saying that a woman can't have a successful career? Of course not. But what I am saying is inside of a household, there has to be a clear hierarchy. And God has already laid out that foundation. And in the modern day church, we're being essentially told that that's not necessarily how it should be. That there's this sense of equality in who we are under God. And that's simply not true. See, men and women are not equal. We are different. We don't have equal strength We don't have equal emotional regulations. We don't have equal decision making processes. Studies show that women tend to be more emotional. Men tend to be more logical. Men are obviously biologically stronger. Women tend to be more nurturing. Like these are just biological normalities. These are things that are just normal. But people can't accept it because in our society that we live today, we don't want to sound misogynistic. Everyone's afraid of being labeled misogynistic or Islamophobic or whatever the case is. But the reality is, facts are facts and things are things. And if you want things to work, there's a certain way that makes things work and there's a certain way that doesn't. Anything that we do that goes with what God has in store for our lives and what He wanted for us and what's written in the Bible, usually, not usually, it is the best way. It's the only way. Everything outside of that will lead you astray. See, that path is broad and it's comfortable, but the other path is narrow and it's less traveled. And we know that. Men today have to be focusing on a few things. They have to be protectors, providers. They have to be strong men. They have to be courageous men. They have to understand that Jesus was not a weak man. When we lived like Jesus, Jesus was the strongest man to ever exist. He was the strongest man ever to be able to endure what he endured, to be able to lead the way he led, to be able to have the patience to help the people in which he helped. Don't forget about the book of Revelation. When we think about Jesus, we often think about just Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But we don't think about the book of Revelation when he comes back with a sword from his mouth, a double-edged sword. Like we don't think about him coming back to cast judgment, coming back to fight evil. But that's the reality. Like Jesus is our example. And so us as men, we need to be providers. See, the book of Ephesians says that we need to love our wives the way Christ loved the church. Well, what did Christ do for us? What is Christ still yet to do for us? What is written? Now you understand what our role is. So what is a man to do? Well, first and foremost, you need to build a brotherhood. You need to find a group of men that are leaders, men that are growing mentally, physically, and spiritually, right? Men should be modern day crusaders. There is going to be an attempted takeover. There will be people who try to take your land, take your faith. There's parts of the world right now where you cannot pray in the streets. Western civilizations, London, where you cannot pray in the streets. Otherwise, you'll be jailed. There are civilizations where you cannot find yourself telling anyone you're a Christian because you will have your head cut off by Muslim extremists. Or I should just say, traditional Muslim men. Because the reality is, that is a faith that should strike the neck of non-believers. Why? Because that's what their doctrine says. So my point in saying this is you as a Christian man, as a leader, as a father, as a husband, you have to be a modern day crusader. You have to be willing to fight and protect your family. And the best way to do that, again, is to find that brotherhood. And unfortunately, most of the time you cannot find it in church. This is one of the most critical things you can do in your life. And that's why at Before the Apple with Genesis 90, which is a brotherhood program, like a program like Genesis 90, literally we're talking men who come in to become the best mental, physical, spiritual leaders that they've ever been. Leadership codes, things they have to follow, right? Principles, a life living for something higher than yourself, Christ, a life truly being built to grow and change as a leader in your community. That's what Genesis 90 does for men. And the reality is, if more men really took the time to understand the warfare that they were truly in, that spiritual battle, they would be preparing themselves better. But the devil doesn't want you prepared. The devil doesn't want you prepared. He wants you to think everything is just fine. And it's said, I don't know for sure, but it has been said that when the Antichrist comes, the greatest threat that you will have is actually in many of these modern day churches. Being led astray by a pastor that is nothing but a wolf in sheep's clothing. And again, we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. I'm not saying that every pastor needs to be perfect. We're all fallible. But some people know that they are way off and they're doing it on purpose. Some people know that they're leading their congregations astray. If you lead these children astray, Jesus says it's better to tie a millstone around your neck and drown yourself in the sea. It's better that you have never been saved at all. See, men, you have to be cautious. Focus on where you're getting your growth from, where you're getting your development. The other option is to create your own brotherhood, do home church. But whatever you do, do something because at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to protect your family. And so if you don't, you put them at risk. If you need help, check the description of this video. Join Before the Apple, join Genesis 90, join the brotherhood of men growing, building, and changing to be leaders. We will create a 100 million man army in this country.